And then, at the 11th hour, the story was abruptly killed by the publishers.
And the reason it was killed is absolutely chilling.
It is. It was killed because executives at Time Warner, the parent company of People magazine, were themselves active members of the Bohemian Club.
It's the perfect illustration of the wall of secrecy. You don't need to bribe the press if the people who own the printing presses are inside the gates drinking with you.
It's a closed loop of power. But when you suppress credible journalism, you create an information vacuum. And extreme paranoia rushes into that vacuum.
Which brings us to Richard McCaslin in 2002. Because not everyone tried to breach the perimeter with a notepad.
McCaslin's infiltration is a textbook case of how secrecy breeds psychological distress. He didn't see a political networking event. Based on internet conspiracy theories, he genuinely believed he was looking at an active site of supernatural atrocities.
He became a vigilante. He literally called himself the Phantom Patriot.
He completely embodied it. He wore a tactical blue uniform with Phantom Patriot painted in bright red on his chest, a rubber skull mask, a heavy bulletproof vest.
And his arsenal was terrifying. Assault rifle, handgun, high-powered crossbow, tactical knife, and a homemade bomb launcher made of PVC pipe.
He approached the grove in the dead of night, slipping through the redwoods. His flashlight died, so he was navigating this massive terrain in pitch darkness.
I can't imagine that mindset. Stalking through the woods, armed to the teeth, convinced you're about to interrupt human sacrifices, and when the sun comes up, he finds himself right at the club's most infamous monument.
The massive stone owl. He believed this was the epicenter of a New World Order plot. He felt he needed to wake up the American public to the evils occurring there.
So he broke into an empty recreation hall and set it on fire.
Right. Thankfully, he didn't hurt anyone, as the camp was mostly empty. He was apprehended, his bail was set at $500,000, and he got an 11-year prison sentence.
And he was completely unrepentant in interviews, saying the fire was meant to be a beacon to draw the world's eyes to the darkness.
Exactly. He thought he was saving people.
Before we delve into exactly what kind of darkness McCaslin thought he was fighting and the bizarre rituals that fueled his paranoia, we really need to take a quick pause.
Yes, definitely.
If you are listening to this and finding yourself captivated by the strange, hidden intersections of power and history, please remember that this deep dive is completely free to enjoy. But the extensive research and analytical work required to piece these complex narratives together is made possible by you. You can directly support our work via PayPal, or if you prefer a cryptocurrency, we accept contributions in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Solana. Every single contribution helps us keep digging into the shadows. You can find all the specific links and details right there in the description of this content. Thank you for keeping independent analysis alive.
So, to understand what drove McCaslin to storm a forest with an assault rifle, we have to look at the very real footage that fueled his actions.
The first major category of conspiracy theories: pagan gods, occult rituals, and the cremation of care. This is where it shifts from a political thriller to dark fantasy, and it really all kicked off in the year 2000.
Yes. In the summer of 2000, controversial radio host and rising conspiracy theorist Alex Jones managed to infiltrate the grove with a hidden video camera.
And what he filmed became the foundational text for almost every internet theory about this place. He captured the opening ceremony.
It takes place at dusk, during the first weekend of July. The staging is immaculate. The members are on the banks of a man-made lake at the bottom of a natural ravine, which amplifies the sound.
And towering over the water is the idol, the 40-foot stone and concrete owl covered in moss so it looks ancient.
There's a full, live symphony orchestra playing dramatic music. A figure called the High Priest steps out in a shimmering silver robe and bright red cape.
And he's flanked by like 20 other men in heavy black and red robes carrying actual flaming torches.
The theatricality is immense. His voice echoes over hidden loudspeakers. He says things like, "The owl is in his leafy temple. Let all within the grove be reverent before him." He commands the redwood trees to lift to their ever-living spires.
And then comes the actual cremation of care. What is that?
The robed men solemnly carry out a small wooden boat containing an effigy. It's shaped like a human skeleton made of wire and wrapped in dark paper.
And this effigy is named Care.
Yes, it's the physical embodiment of the worldly burdens, the stress, the heavy responsibilities these men carry in their daily lives.
So they put it on an altar at the base of the giant owl and set it on fire to symbolically burn their worries away.
Exactly. As it burns, the members chant about the one pure and eternal flame, and they scream, "Out, hated care.
And then the high priest declares the midsummer solstice magic has set them free, and they launch a massive fireworks display over the lake.
And according to every journalist who sneaked in, the second the fireworks end, the solemnity vanishes. It descends into an absolute bacchanal. Extreme drinking, nonstop partying.
We also have to touch on the hijinks and lowjinks because they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on these theatrical plays.
Yes, these are elaborate, professionally produced plays. Members write and perform for each other.
And because of the 1978 Supreme Court ruling, there are no female members. So you have billionaires and conservative politicians cross-dressing to play the female roles.
Exactly. Even Jack London wrote one of these plays, The Acorn Planter.
So this brings up a massive analytical juncture. Are these practices actually pagan?
Well, if we look at the historical definition of paganism, reverence of nature, polytheistic idols, astronomical events like the solstice, the cremation of care, absolutely fits. It's a ritualistic sacrifice of an effigy to an animal idol in an ancient forest.
But my brain kind of short circuits here. Look at the membership. We're talking fiercely public, traditionally conservative, orthodox Christian figures. Ronald Reagan, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, George Herbert Walker Bush, men who built their brands on traditional family values.
The paradox is massive.
Am I really supposed to believe Antonin Scalia was secretly out there genuinely worshiping a 40-foot stone owl? Or is this just an incredibly expensive version of a stressed CEO burning a stress ball?
Sociologists explain this through mock transgression. By participating in a theatrical ceremony that violates their public conservative personas, they forge a bond of mutual secrecy.
Mutually assured destruction for their reputations. None of us can ever talk about this outside these gates, so we inherently trust each other.
Precisely. But a conspiracy theorist watching Alex Jones's grainy footage doesn't care about sociological theories. They see world leaders in robes burning a body in front of an idol and conclude it's literal occult worship.
And when the internet decides powerful men are practicing the occult, theories mutate into something far darker. I want to be very clear to our listeners here. We are examining this entirely impartially, strictly reporting what is on the historical and legal record without taking any political sides, left-wing or right-wing. We're just trying to understand how these narratives form.
That's a crucial distinction.
The darkest allegations center around Paul Bonacci. His 1990 sworn testimony to lawyer John DeCamp is horrifying. He claimed that in the summer of 1984, when he was 16, he was violently kidnapped.
He was thrown into a vehicle and driven to a heavily wooded area with massive ancient trees about an hour outside Sacramento.
He testified he was forced into a rustic cabin where he was subjected to severe child abuse. And worst of all, he claimed he saw another boy locked in a cage, sexually assaulted and murdered, shot in the head.
He also stated the men were filming it and said hooded men from a satanic cult would arrive to dispose of the body.
Now, in 1984, he had no idea where he geographically was. He was a kidnapped teenager.
Right. It was only years later, working with his legal team, piecing together fragments of memory, the massive redwoods, the cabins, the profiles of the wealthy men involved, that they concluded it must have been the Bohemian Grove.
We have to look at the context of Paul Bonacci because his life is a tragedy of verified systemic abuse. He was entwined in the Franklin Community Federal Credit Union scandal in Nebraska.
Yes, a highly publicized case of a child trafficking ring allegedly serving elites. Bonacci actually won a civil lawsuit in 1999 against the director, Lawrence King, for the severe trauma he endured.
As a direct result of that abuse, he was diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, which makes analyzing his claim incredibly delicate. Our sources make it explicitly clear there is no concrete physical proof tying Bonacci's specific trauma directly to the Bohemian Grove. The geographical link remains unproven.
But these rumors are resilient. Recently, professional boxer Ryan Garcia claimed to have seen unconfirmed videos of trafficking tied to the Grove, bringing the satanic panic narratives right back.
The resurgence of these claims raises a huge question about secrecy. The Grove is 2,700 acres off the grid. Law enforcement doesn't patrol inside, so it is practically impossible to definitively debunk these dark allegations.
You can't prove a negative. When a space operates outside public view, dark theories can't be disproven by transparency because there is no transparency. Conspiracy theorists just say, if they aren't doing something horrific, why the armed guards and the Supreme Court ruling?
But whether they are worshiping an owl or just blowing off steam, the actual documented danger might not be criminal or spiritual at all. It might be entirely political. Which brings us to the second conspiracy theory. the New World Order, and the Lakeside Talks.
To understand the politics, look at the club's official motto, "Weaving spiders come not here," from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream.
The explicit instruction to leave business deals and political maneuvering outside.
Right. You are here to enjoy nature and the arts.
I gotta say, that's like a Vegas casino claiming, we aren't about making money, we just have flashing lights. If they aren't there to weave webs of power, why do they exclusively invite the biggest spiders in the global economy?
The reality fundamentally contradicts the motto. Every afternoon, the members gather by the lake for highly structured daily briefings called Lakeside Talks, delivered by experts, CEOs, generals, and politicians.
And thanks to activists like Mary Moore leaking the programs, we know what they talked about. Let's run through the timeline, because it's staggering. 1981, Caspar Weinberger.
He was Secretary of Defense. He gave a talk called Rearming America.
Shortly before the Reagan administration launched the Strategic Defense Initiative. So he's pitching the military-industrial complex to the men who will fund and build it.
Then, 1989. Philip Weiss personally observed a talk by General John Shane, Commander-in-Chief of the Strategic Air Command. General Shane explicitly lobbied the billionaires and defense contractors for $45 billion to fund the B-2 stealth bomber.
Think about how the government is supposed to work. A general who wants $45 billion is supposed to sit in front of a congressional committee, under oath, on public TV, and justify it to the taxpayers.
But instead, he pitches it in secret, over drinks in a forest, to the exact CEOs and bankers who will profit from it. It's the ultimate circumvention of public oversight.
It really is, and in 2004, Roger McCarthy gave a talk called The Next Virtual Soldier, foreshadowing the boom in drone warfare and AI. 2005, Richard Lamb talked about the case for immigration restriction years before it became the central polarizing issue.
And in 2011, Rupert Murdoch delivered a talk on the future of news.
Rupert Murdoch plotting the future of news in secret years before the algorithmic echo chambers tore the electorate apart. It's incredible, and this track record leads directly into the kingmaker theory.
The statistical evidence is hard to brush off. Almost every Republican president since 1923 has visited the Bohemian Grove, usually before their successful election.
The sources mentioned Donald Trump as the only notable exception recently, but for a century, it was a mandatory elite vetting ground.
Richard Nixon was remarkably candid about this in his memoirs. He wrote that his 1967 Lakeside Talk was the very first milestone on his path to winning the presidency in 1968. It gave him the backing he needed.
And it's also about passing the torch. In 1995, George Herbert Walker Bush brought his son, George Walker Bush, to introduce him around and casually predicted he'd be a great president. 5 years later, he's in the Oval Office.
This brings us to Professor Peter Phillips' sociological analysis. Is this a deliberate New World Order cabal or just natural elite networking?
I lean toward the networking. A smoke-filled room master plan gives them too much credit. You put 2,500 of the richest men in a forest, pump them full of alcohol, remove all journalists, and their casual conversations will inherently shape global policy.
Exactly. Professor Phillips argues it's the natural consequence of extreme wealth concentration. When the global elite share stock tips and vet candidates in a completely unscrutinized environment, it organically creates public policies that benefit their specific class.
Class solidarity, successfully masked as a harmless summer camp.
Right. But even if we dismiss the owl as just rich men playing games, there's one piece of concrete, terrifying history that forces us to take the Grove seriously. They didn't just build political networks.
They built the blueprint for the apocalypse. Let's move to our final section, the birth of the atomic bomb. This is where conspiracy theorists point to the history books to prove they aren't crazy.
On September 13th and 14th of 1942, a highly secretive meeting took place inside a wooden clubhouse in the Bohemian Grove.
World War II is raging, the U.S. is terrified of Nazi nuclear weapons, and they need a place off the grid. So who walks into this clubhouse?
The attendee list is staggering. Robert Oppenheimer, Ernest Lawrence,
Brilliant physicists.
James Conant, president of Harvard, Lyman Briggs, director of the National Bureau of Standards, Edgar B. Murphy from Standard Oil, and Arthur H. Compton representing General Electric.
The greatest scientific minds, heads of academia, and leaders of the military-industrial complex sitting around a wooden table in the forest.
Over that weekend, they laid out the initial planning and logistical framework for what would become the Manhattan Project, an enterprise that cost $30 billion.
And the timeline is the most horrifying part. Just 3 years after they sat in that clubhouse calculating physics equations, the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, hundreds of thousands of civilians vaporized, the nuclear age began.
And the literal blueprint was drawn up at a summer camp. The Bohemian Club actually considers this a point of immense institutional pride. They pass the story down to new initiates.
But if you take a step back, it's utterly terrifying. If the blueprint for the most destructive weapon in human history was drawn up entirely hidden from public oversight or the democratic process, how can we dismiss any theory about their influence as just paranoia?
It's the ultimate validation of the public's fears. If they planned the atomic bomb without anyone knowing, we have to ask what other revolutionary technologies or massive global economic shifts have been casually agreed upon over drinks there since.
So, synthesizing everything we've looked at today, the Bohemian Grove seems to exist in a bizarre quantum state. On one hand, it is undeniably a ridiculous, deeply regressive, cross-dressing summer camp for out-of-touch billionaires who want an excuse to pee on trees and burn paper skeletons in the dark.
Yes, and simultaneously, it is a highly secure, heavily guarded nexus of absolute global power, where the architecture of the modern world, the funding of our military, and the creation of devastating weapons are forged without a single camera watching.
The power is the party, and the party is the power. The absurdity is the shield that protects the influence.
And that raises a deeply unsettling question. We live in an age of inescapable digital surveillance. Our phones track everything. Privacy is dead for the average citizen.
But for the global elite, the most powerful tool they possess isn't a quantum computer or an encrypted algorithm. It's just 2,700 acres of off-the-grid, heavily guarded trees.
If you have enough money, you can buy the one thing no one else can afford. A place where the cameras turn off.
So the question you have to ask yourself tonight as you look at your phone and realize how visible you are is this. What modern equivalent of the atomic bomb is being casually discussed under the shadow of the stone owl right now?
A chilling thought to end on indeed.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Please remember to subscribe to the platform, support the show's analytical work via the links in the description, and share this content with others who might want to look a little closer at the world around them. Until next time, keep questioning the shadows.